don't have a gavel, I have a mouse. All right, we're good, Nancy? All right. Here we are. This is the regular meeting of the Woodbridge Conservation Commission, April 18th, 2019, not 18. First item on the agenda is public comments. We have no members of the public here to provide comments, unfortunately, so we will move on to item 2. It's a presentation by Dennis Reardon from the Menunkatuck Audubon Society. I got that name right. I'm going to just quickly turn it right on over to you, Dennis. Maybe give a little background of the Menunkatuck Audubon Society, and then head on to the presentation for us.
Right.
We got to adjust the projector a little bit.
No, that's his.
I guess if you push it closer, maybe.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yep. Yep. So, in 1982, Carl was one of the founders of Menunkatuck, and it started in Guilford, Madison, and Brantford, and over time it has expanded to about 20 years ago include East Haven, New Haven, and West Haven, and then last year we incorporated Orange and Woodbridge, as well as the North Brantford part of North Brantford, as opposed to the Northford part of North Brantford. Orange and Woodbridge come to us from the now defunct Menunkatuck Valley Audubon Society. They closed up about 4 years ago, and we've taken over their membership in these two towns. We've got about 700 members and an extensive email and Facebook presence with lots of interaction there.
So I noticed you sort of U-shaped if you include all those towns. So Hamden is...
Hamden, North Haven, Northford, and towns north of those are part of Quinnipiac Valley Audubon Society.
Okay.
North of Guilford is Matabesic, and to the east of Madison is Potopac.
Okay.
To the west of Orange and Woodbridge is nothing.
Really?
No Audubon chapters there.
No Fairfield County.
There are no Audubon chapters in Fairfield County. Hard to believe, but
that is surprising.
Not to be confused with Connecticut Audubon. Connecticut Audubon is a totally separate organization from ours. But just recently, one of the people from Audubon, Connecticut, became the executive director of Connecticut Audubon. So we've kind of
we're very closely together.
Very closely together.
So Connecticut Audubon is not the umbrla above all of these regional ones?
You want to make it even more confusing? It's Audubon Connecticut. So that is Connecticut Audubon Society. Connecticut Audubon Society is an independent Audubon Society.
Okay, so that's where it came from.
Mass Audubon, New Jersey Audubon are other independent Audubon societies. If you find an organization that's called Audubon state name, Audubon Connecticut, Audubon New York, Audubon Vermont, those are state offices of National Audubon Society. We are a chapter of National Audubon Society, one of about 450 throughout the country.
Okay. So Connecticut Audubon is not under the national umbrella, but
No.
you guys are...
Yes.
Okay. Funny.
Yeah.
But Audubon Connecticut.
And if you get to the websites for Connecticut Audubon Society and Audubon, Connecticut, they're exactly the same except
Oh, jeez.
adopt. ctaudubon.org, ctaudubon.org. It is awful.
Wow. Well,
And to make things even more confusing, across the Housatonic from the Milford Center is Audubon, Connecticut at Stratford Point. So both organizations have areas at the mouth of the Housatonic. I mean,
Connecticut Audubon is west, is east side, Audubon, Connecticut is west side.
I had no idea there were so many and so much confusion behind it.
Yeah.
So, I'm
And
learning.
now,
That's why we're clarifying. Now it's going.
there'll be a quiz afterwards.
yeah,
So for 37 years, we've been doing a lot of work in our chapter towns.
Yeah, I'm not old, okay.
Yeah. One of our biggest projects in the last 5 years has been installing Osprey platforms along the Connecticut shore. About 5 years ago, an Osprey platform in Guilford collapsed with 3 eggs on the nest. And the parents were perched on the collapsed platform trying to figure out what to do. So one of our board members went out there, assessed it, came back, got some lumber and re-erected the pole, put some sticks on the nest, and by the time he had, or just as he left the site, the 2 ospreys were bringing more sticks back to the nest, trying to re-nest. The eggs, unfortunately, were all smashed, but the ospreys were going right at it again, trying to reestablish their nest. At that point, we looked around the area and we found dozens of osprey platforms that were in pretty much the same shape as this one. They were put up in the early 90s when the osprey population started to rebound, and they were put up on the cheap. They were just very simple pine poles with a couple of braces to hold them upright, put together with nails. And none of that survived 20 years of being in salt water.
Yeah.
The wood rotted, the nails rusted, and they started collapsing. So we started a project of proactively going around and assessing the weakest and replacing them. And during that time, we put up 76 of these platforms that look more or less like this. Cedar, pressure-treated lumber, heavy-duty hardware. They're going to outlast a lot of weathering. And some of the ones we put up, this is based on a design that we used at Hammonasset, replacing platforms there that had been put up about 30 years ago now. And the platforms that we put there survived all of the superstorms that we've had in the last 10 years or so. So this is a really good design.
How many have at Hammonasset?
We have 6 at Hammonasset. And most of the work is done in the late fall, early winter, or even when it's nasty like this out there. And we've had over 100 volunteers working on this. And it's like a party out there when they're doing this. Ooh, let me go back. That title slide is wrong, but this map isn't. Map.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Wait, we saw a
From
brief.
Greenwich to Stonington, we've been working, and we are right now the expert on Osprey platforms. Actually, probably in the Northeast, we've had inquiries from Rhode Island, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia,
Nice.
and DEEP has asked us to install platforms in some of the other state parks besides Hammonasset. And we've also been asked to just retrofit some with things like baffles to prevent predators from being able to get in them. We also have purple martin colonies at Hammonasset. There are 2 colonies at Hammonasset. We've got another colony in Guilford, and we're trying to establish one in West River Memorial Park in New Haven at the Barnard Nature Center, corner of El Grasso Boulevard and Derby Avenue.
How many herons are there? There's some herons there, I believe.
There are lots of herons that fish there, but herons will nest on offshore islands and come ashore to do their feeding and getting food
Yeah,
for the young.
we've seen them there, though. They've been in the park sometimes, the herons.
Well, these are for purple martins, as opposed to herons.
Okay, yeah. No, I was talking about the herons.
So we've been putting up gourds like this, and we put up at the Guilford Salt Meadow Sanctuary. We put up a metal purple martin house in 2011, 2010, 2011, and nothing. There's a colony across the East River from where we put it up. Nothing. What are we going to do? We got a solar-powered sound system. We put it out there, playing the calls of the purple martins. That year we had 3 pair come and look at it. The next year we had 6 pair nest. The following year we had 19.
Oh, great.
They like the
So-
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Apparently the audio worked. Huh?
The audio worked. And at that point we pulled the audio and we moved it to another place. At Stratford Point at the mouth of the Housatonic, they'd had a gourd rack up there for years with nothing coming. We put it there 2 years ago. Last year they had martins come. And there are loads of martins across the river at CAS. So this sound system is a winner.
There you go.
And we're playing sounds at West River with the hopes that eventually some birds will find it. Problem with that is there is not a colony around.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to be birds that are migrating by, and they hear the noises and say, "Ooh, look at, what's that? And go to investigate. And a lot of times in the fall, it works also because as they're migrating, they're looking for possible places. The juveniles, the first year birds, are looking for places that they could return to. Because the way the martins work is their sight, they have great sight fidelity. So a pair that nests at a gourd rack at Hammonasset will be back at that same rack next year and the next year, so long as they survive. So there are not generally too many openings for newcomers. So they have to find a new place.
And what would have been their natural habitat?
The natural habitat would have been holes in deadwood. However, for years and years, Native Americans would put up natural gourds to attract them. And so the purple martins have really become habituated to that kind of habitat for them to nest in. We've got, in Orange, we're working with the Conservation Commission there, and they asked for recommendations for a site where they could put up a purple martin house, and
It's going to the Ewan Preserve.
yeah, so
Are they mainly coastal? Or
No.
No?
no.
Okay.
Their colonies to the north of us here.
All right.
More likely coastal,
Mhm.
but that's because that's where they are and they're colonial. So for a pair, for a colony to start in, I don't know, in Canton, there'd probably have to be some colonies that would be established
Creeping.
along the way to Canton before the birds would overshoot that and they can
Do
get
they
up
like
there.
to be near some water though? Some kind
They
of
like
water?
to be near water.
Right.
Their
Main food source.
their main
Right.
food source for feeding chicks is dragonflies,
Salt water, fresh water,
fresh water
fresh water.
or brackish water.
Brackish water.
Okay.
Not like the ocean. So at Hammonasset, they hunt over the marshes. We have tree swallow nest boxes in Hammonasset, Guilford Salt Meadow Sanctuary, the Ox Pasture Reserve
Pasture,
in Madison, at West Rock Nature Center, New Haven, West River Memorial Park, and those are very, very successful. We put up the nest boxes at West River Memorial Park about 4 or 5 years ago. We put them up around this time. This is about as late as you can do it. And I went back to see what was going on the next day, and there were tree swallows already going into them. So they were there, and they just needed a place to go.
And what makes it just for tree swallows?
The design we use is it's roughly the same size as a bluebird box. The opening is a slot at the top. It's not a hole. It's a slot at the top. And one of our board members worked like crazy to figure out the right gap to use so that tree swallows could get in and undesirable birds couldn't. And bluebirds generally don't like that slot. They would prefer a hole. The box is perfectly good for them. They just don't like the slot. The tree swallows don't care. So invasive species for those boxes would be house sparrows and European starlings.
Right, how do you keep them out?
The slot is just the right size.
Really?
You can't get
Because
in.
European starlings go in the bluebird boxes.
Right.
Right.
The other thing, there are some house sparrows that will get in the tree swallow box. Well, we also monitor them during the nesting season when the birds are first coming back. We monitor them, and if we notice a a house sparrow nest in there, we remove it. And then we remove the next one that they put in there, and we keep doing it, and they finally get discouraged. The starlings just can't fit in that slot. And neither of those birds is protected. They're non-native, so they're not protected by the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So there's no problem with evicting them. There's no problem if the house sparrows did lay eggs, destroying the eggs. They're a pest bird, essentially. And both eastern bluebirds and the tree swallows would have also nested in cavities in trees. The difference being that they would each take a cavity in a tree here and a tree 100 feet away, not in the same tree the way the martins would. At the Guilford Salt Meadow Sanctuary, we have bluebird boxes and tree swallow boxes back to back. That's perfectly fine. They get along fine. They don't get along with their same species. Tree swallows will nest within 100 feet of each other. So we've got tree swallow boxes every 100 feet. Bluebirds prefer to be maybe 300 feet apart. So every third tree swallow box, we have a bluebird box on it too. So got a little more nesting area in there in a somewhat smaller area.
Dennis?
Yes.
The kids at Beecher Road School in Woodbridge, they have bluebird, a whole,
Bluebird boxes,
Yeah.
everywhere.
And they
help
take
kids
care of
try to
them.
Figure out which kinds of birds, or if somebody's coming in.
yeah.
Like trying to take, like to look for a certain kind of sticks or whatever. That means it's not the right nest.
Yeah.
Whatever, they have pictures.
The house sparrow
Different.
nests
It's
are
terrific.
a mess.
Right.
They just, whatever they find, they just
Right,
shove
so
in.
if you ever see any garbage in there, that means it's not a bluebird.
Right.
Or if it's
Yeah.
Bluebirds,
It's not a bluebird. They like certain kind,
They like a
certain
grass
kind of
nest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And tree swallows will make a nest of grass and leaves and then finish it off with white feathers. White feathers that are like curled. And they make like yeah, you can see it kind of onto
Crap in
the,
there, it's the wrong bird.
Wrong bird.
That's
Yeah.
what so I have those nests above my doors in my house. Right above on the door frames.
house sparrows.
These ones?
House
No,
sparrows.
not the good ones.
House sparrows.
Yes.
House sparrows, yep.
I can't move them. I was told I can't, and this is not time for this, I know. I was told I can't move them, and then someone said, really don't move them. So I
No,
don't know.
if they have made a really crummy looking nest, you can remove it. It's a house sparrow.
All right, maybe you can come over because
I have the same thing.
okay.
So I have a little stick next to the front door,
Oh,
and I just reach up and
yeah.
sweep the stuff
All right,
away.
Okay. It's hard for
And then I do it the next morning,
yeah.
and then I do it the next
I
morning,
put up here.
and then
I
they
know,
give
you're
up.
Gonna kill me. I put up those bird away things and the what's that called? The not glass, pretend glass.
Yeah,
All,
Silhouettes.
yeah, all that, and they they use it. They oh, thanks.
Right.
All right, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Not at all.
Karen has a question.
No,
Yes.
are you supposed to give bird feed? I mean, are you a proponent of putting bird seed out? Or some people think, you shouldn't because then they become dependent on you.
they're not dependent on it.
Okay, because I put bird seed out. I like to watch and see.
That's perfectly fine.
Okay. Yeah.
Until it starts bringing in all of the starlings.
And
then you
then
need to stop.
Or
No, the blue jays come
The bears.
first. It's funny, watch.
oh, the
blue
bears.
jays
We
come
have the
first,
bears
they're
now in
bigger.
Woodbridge too.
Then you get and at the
blue
end
jays
you get the doves that they look kind of more,
Yeah.
it's like you see the pecking order of the bird seed,
Right.
and which comes first and then all the way down. But anyway, I'm sorry, John.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm
I
sorry.
just
Tim.
wanted to make sure I was doing the right things.
Yep, it's all right. So, lots of success with these nest boxes. We've also got 14 barn owl boxes we put up. We had help with Guilford High School students built the boxes. They made those baffles, and then we got them out into the field to install some of them. Barn owls are another bird that is severely declined in the state, mostly because there aren't that many barns anymore. Not that they nested in barns, like 4,000 years ago,
Right.
but their cavities have gone. They started using barns, and it's just a complete lack of habitat for them. The other thing is the widespread use of rodenticide. They
Like
are
food.
mouse and rat
Right.
and vole
Oh,
eaters,
I get you.
and
Yeah.
they can't tell the difference between a mouse that's eaten some rodenticide and one that hasn't. And if they bring it back to the nest to feed their chicks, the chicks are going to die. If they eat it themselves, they're going to die. So we did a really careful survey of Guilford, Madison, and Killingworth to find areas where rodenticides were not being used, and we put up the nest boxes there. We've had no visitors, but that's not surprising because there are so few barn owls that it's going to take a while for one of them or two of them to find it. But if they're not there, there'll be nothing for them to find to nest it. So
Have you tried the audio with those guys?
no, that wouldn't work with them.
No, it's
No.
not colony
No.
type.
In the case of the last three birds, the tree swallows, eastern bluebirds, and barn owls, there are a lot of areas here in Woodbridge that would be potential sites for
Yeah.
nest boxes.
The Darling House, the barn there
Including-
across the street.
Okay.
That-
I think
There's
it's,
tons of
Yeah,
places.
the big
That's
open
good.
fields
Yeah.
over there. Yeah.
yeah.
Quite a few.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing is kestrel boxes. American kestrels are another species that habitually nested in cavities and will now use artificial nest boxes. They require a fairly large open space to hunt, same as barn owls. An area like the fields across the way would be a good place for them also.
Can you put stuff on water company property also? Would it be-
Most of the barn owl boxes that we put up were on Water Authority
Yeah,
land.
because we have, yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of you're talking about do they need water? Well, there's not too much water in Woodbridge, large water that's not Water Authority water.
Right.
You got that right.
Well, that's right.
Makes sense.
There's a lot of water,
Yeah.
water company property.
Yeah.
That nothing is there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
One of the things about all of these, though, is that they do require monitoring, because we don't want starlings. Starlings will nest in kestrel boxes. Can't make the hole small enough to prevent the starling from getting in and have it big enough that a kestrel can get in. So they've got to be monitored and the starlings evicted. The other nest boxes, you got to monitor for things like mites and things like that that might get in and start wreaking havoc on the chicks. So we don't like to put up nest boxes anywhere unless we have somebody that's willing to go on a fairly regular basis and monitor them.
How often do you have to monitor?
Well, in the spring, fairly often, to evict birds that you don't want. And
Every other day or?
every 3 or 4 days. And if you were to find, like a house sparrow found a nest box and they wanted to use it, then you'd have to go back a little more often to keep evicting it. But as soon as you find the desired bird going in there, you can leave it alone for a couple weeks. Let the birds make their nest. It takes about 2 weeks for a bird to make a nest satisfactory. Then go back a few times, check, see if there are any eggs there. Bluebirds and tree swallows lay eggs every day for about 4 or 5 days. So you can tell if there's 3 eggs there. Well, they started 3 days ago. They got probably 2 more days to go. Find out how many eggs there are, then leave them alone for a couple weeks for the eggs to hatch. When you think they're going to hatch, go back, check to make sure everything's still okay. And then every 2 or 3 days after that for a couple weeks, go back and just make an inspection and make sure that the nest is in good shape, that there aren't any ants or mites or anything like that in it. And then, yeah, and then you're good to go. So if no bird's nest in the box, well then you're done.
If you keep opening the box though, and
They don't care.
They don't care. And if they, is there a wise tell us if they smell your hand,
No.
they won't come back? Because
No.
I remember I read that.
No.
Or somebody told me that one
No.
time. No,
No.
like if you pick up the egg, then
Nope.
the mom won't come back because they smell your. You know, I heard that. I heard that.
No, I heard that too.
Yeah.
One of our when we started this project in 2005 with tree swallows at Hammonasset, one of our board members took safe markers and labeled the eggs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Didn't matter. We take if the nest is in bad shape. The other thing that happens is that, after a few days, there might be a lot of poop in there. And take the nest out, carefully remove the chicks, put them in a box with some soft material, clean out the old nest material, put in some new nest material, put the chicks back, close up the box, walk 10 feet away, and the parents are back feeding.
Wow. Okay. So that's really a little wives' tale.
Twice
That was a real wives' tale
Like
there.
changing the sheets.
Yeah, really.
Suppose that was made up just to keep the kids from going out and
Maybe.
disturbing
Right.
nests.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember being little and being like, oh my god, I touched the egg and now the mom's gonna, it's all like.
The mom's going to come
Not
and
gonna
sit
come
on the
back.
eggs. Right?
Well, at
We
least-
had a situation where I was living in West Rock Avenue across from Midgewood School where this unfortunate sparrows that built a nest. We had a kind of wicker basket with flowers and hanging. They came and built a nest inside the thing, and when the chicks hatched and so forth, my daughter was going out the front door, and it scared all the chicks, and all 5 chicks came flapping out of the thing or scurrying across the front porch and so forth. We collected them, put them all back in,
Oh, you got good at this.
A week later, they're all fledgling. So.
But that's another point about checking the nest boxes, though. There comes a point where the birds are old enough that you don't want to check. The chicks are old enough that you don't want to check because they've gotten strong enough that they could start flapping their wings and try and leave when they're not ready.
Or injured.
And then, they could injure themselves falling, or you could wind up chasing them around trying to catch them because they're not going to be able to fly back in. So at about 18 days old, just leave them alone. If they've gotten to that age, they're probably good to go.
All right.
So we've also got nest cams in New Haven, on Faulkner Island off Guilford, and in Madison. We got another one that's going to start up probably next week in Clinton, showing yellow-crowned night heron.
Are those battery powered?
They are solar powered.
What's one of those go for?
About 4,500.
And there's the ongoing communication costs, right? For it to transmit.
The service for streaming is about $450 a year. At this point, we've got so many that they gave us a break.
You get a discount.
The Madison camera is on an Osprey platform just outside Meigs Point Nature Center. And we put it up last year, and it had almost 250,000 hits.
Wow.
Cool. The costs on that are a little less because we're using Deep's internet access. The cost in New Haven is a little less because we're using the Board of Ed's internet access. But we still have to pay for the streaming service. At Faulkner, we're paying, I think it's Comcast for that.
How do you fund getting the cameras?
The first one was in New Haven. We got a grant from the Watershed Fund, $4,500. It wound up costing more because we didn't know what we were doing and had a lot of parts that didn't work that had to be replaced. The camera at Meigs Point was funded by a grant from a very generous contributor to Audubon, and the cameras at Faulkner were funded by the Guilford Foundation.
Nice.
And they're so popular that we get enough money from donations to cover the streaming costs. That's
Very good.
You just go to the website, it's on the bottom of my card there, that'll get you right to the cameras.
No, those aren't Osprey. What are
those are Osprey.
Those are
They're
Osprey.
Osprey, okay.
This is West River.
Yep.
Oh, I thought they were all more white.
Underneath.
Underneath they're
When you
white,
see them
yeah.
from below, they're all white.
Right.
The,
You see 'em from
The Faulkner Island cam also is for, primarily it was put up for roseate terns, but the oyster catchers, they're the roseate terns, the oyster catchers nest in the roseate tern area before the terns come back. So it's like, oh, well, we'll show those guys too. And this is the Hammo camera. They had 4 chicks last year. Unheard of for 4 eggs.
Wow.
Impossible for 4 eggs to hatch. It's hard for 3 eggs to hatch. If 4 eggs hatch, and, we also found this owl nest, and we took one of the cameras from Faulkner and moved it here for the nesting season. It was a person across the street let us use her internet access to stream it. So,
Very good.
and then we moved it to one of our board members' yards for the Northern Cardinal cam.
Some good footage.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Really good. That's great.
It's a lot of watching to find the right good footage because it's long hours of nothing. And
Yeah, and here's the thing, on the web pages for these, we've got a link to email one of our board members if you see something interesting.
Yeah.
Note the time, and we were paying for a backup service, so there's I think it's 30 days of recordings that we can go back and take a look at. So we've done that and get a lot of interesting stuff there.
More eyes, the better.
Yeah. And there's the gourd rack in the center at West River Memorial Park, and we're creating an urban oasis there. That area was just like a park lawn 5 years ago, and we're converting it into a meadow. We've put in
That's quite an accomplishment. I've seen it.
Yeah, I saw
Looks good.
that.
You
I
see it?
saw that.
Yeah.
There's like you pass the Yale Bowl.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you take
Yeah,
it right
that's
through
good.
that whole park
Is
there.
it attracting some birds?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would think it would be.
And
That's great.
it's attracting birds because it's attracting insects. Last summer, we put in about 1,000 perennial plugs. And you can't put in plugs standing up. You gotta kind of crawl around. So I'm crawling around on the ground putting the plugs in, and I look on my knee here, and there's all these little insects crawling on it. And it's like just dozens and dozens, and that's what the birds need,
Yeah.
especially in spring and early summer when they're feeding their chicks. We've also put in about 300 or 400 shrubs, native shrubs.
Wow.
All this is, again, done with grant money that we get. Burke Plants for Birds grant from Audubon, important bird area grants, collaborative grants, and then grants from other organizations like Connecticut Ornithological Association.
That's great.
We've had excellent success with grants because I think we have a good track record of making wise use of them. Not that it would be too useful here, but
Don't have too many horseshoe crabs up this way.
yeah, it's a great kid-friendly thing that we do in Guilford. We have a plant sale every spring, including now, and we put about 1,000 native plants in people's yards. Last year we partnered with Roses for Autism in Guilford to grow some of the plants for our plant sale. Kids there, or no, not kids, the young people there really enjoyed it. We're
Excellent.
also working with a couple of autistic people from Ben Haven at West River Memorial Park on the Urban Oasis stuff there. They were there today cleaning up some brush debris that we cut a couple weeks ago. They work for the Parks Department, and their primary job is cleaning up trash. And even for them, that gets old. And last year, we started working with them, doing simple little jobs in the urban oasis, and they really liked it.
Work with Peter Davis and
Peter,
David.
yeah, Peter, yeah.
Yeah, they're good
Yeah.
kids, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they do a good job.
Yeah.
They clean up a lot of trash besides for what they're doing with you.
yeah,
guys.
Yep.
yeah. Peter's crazy with that. I mean, he's just,
He's gonna help. Did you do any of that Beaver Park Oasis? They got a beautiful oasis
Yeah,
in Beaver Park too.
I consulted with them on that.
Yeah, they did a
Yeah.
good job there.
Yeah,
Nan's husband, I believe, was
yeah, Bill,
Bill.
Bidwell, yeah.
Yeah, he did a lot of work there.
Yeah, he was a tireless worker over there. And right now she's looking
It's something
for,
to see. I mean, right in the middle of the city. I was impressed. I only
Yeah.
saw it one time. It was really pretty
well,
gorgeous.
speaking of in the middle of the city, West River Memorial Park, right outside Barnard Nature Center, 4 years ago now,
The Eagles?
the Eagles. The Eagle, the first time,
First time.
I think the first time anybody saw the eagle was when we were having a meeting in the Nature Center, and I saw this thing fly out the corner of my eye. Look out. Looks like a bald eagle. Landed in a birch tree right by the parking lot.
It's amazing.
It is a bald eagle. No, there's two of them.
Right.
I live just around the corner. I drove home, got my camera, drove back.
Yeah.
Eagles are still there. Took a couple pictures. Eagles are still there. Next thing you know, they're nesting over on the monk parakeet tree. And now they've moved down to Evergreen Cemetery. And this is their third year nesting there.
So they're still around.
Yep.
All right.
They've,
Last Tuesday, as I was driving out,
Probably pretty safe.
did that-
too,
headed
because
east,
someone's going in there.
two pair were sitting on a tree right alongside the road, right where between the pond where the fountains are in the roadway, just hanging out there.
They still come back to the Barnard Nature Center area. In fact, I guess it was about 2 months ago now. We were doing a bird walk, and we stopped by there, and the two of them were in the tree, and they were making babies.
Did that have something to do with the Tygate project, the backwash from the salt water? That they thought it might have. I don't know if it did or not.
I don't know, but the male of the eagle pair was raised in Hartford, so it was already a city bird. It hatched at the Hartford dump. So it was a city bird, and I guess it wanted to stay in the city, but it's like, you
Just
got to be
moved to a
kidding.
different town.
Rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I remember. I'd see them every day going to and from work. It was
And
amazing.
when the eagles started coming back, it was, you cannot get closer than like half a mile from the eagles, or you'll disturb them. It's like, you can't get that far away.
Right.
And people in the cemetery, people drive into the cemetery, walk right up, and it's like right up there. And it's like, they don't care.
That's wild.
Yeah. And we do a lot of education work. That's a tree swallow nest that shown to a group of volunteers.
That was the fellow who's doing the program that's on the sheet that I passed out to amphibians. Russ Miller.
So we're engaged in a lot of activities.
Did you have Ansonia or no?
No,
There's the Ansonia Nature Center.
Right.
You know them. I was just wondering. They have a lot of birds there that they rescue. They're nice people over there.
they're very good people,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
Maybe when we get these three places integrated, we'll
Yeah.
expand to Ansonia.
Yeah. That was very good.
So you can find us at Menunkatuck.org.
I have a quick question too. I've been
Yes.
seeing a lot in Woodbridge. What do you call those birds that they like? They're turkey hawks or something.
Turkey vultures.
Turkey vultures? They're really ugly.
The black
No,
vultures?
they're the best birds.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask you. They've been really around. I've seen a lot. I don't know if any of you guys have seen them.
We have 7 that come to our farm
There's so many.
every day.
They're
We've
so-
had
And they're actually the first time you see it, and they're
throw
a
them all
little
these
disconcerting because they're so big.
Right.
Yeah, the turkey vultures.
They're turkey vultures. So,
And-
Well,
yeah.
the turkey vultures are ugly, but the black-headed vultures
No,
are
they're
beautiful.
ugly. The redhead with the red
Yes.
faces.
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the black-headed ones are, they were almost 7-8 years ago, you never saw them.
No, black
Right now,
vultures
they
were
come back.
black vultures were a southern bird,
Yeah.
and they gradually moved north. First in western Connecticut, and now they're pretty much throughout the whole state. And they're both very important birds. They're scavengers.
Right.
They will not eat your backyard chickens unless
They
your
don't bother
backyard
them?
chicken dies.
They
do
feed
not-
with our chickens.
They,
Well, your wife
Right
throws
next to
raw,
them.
she throws raw meat at them.
proving my point.
There you go.
And here the crows too. Well, the crows will eat dead or alive, right?
Crows will eat
Anything.
carrion. They will snatch young birds or eggs from the nest, but they're not going to go into a nest box. But a bird that, like a robin that nests in an open nest in the crook of a tree, or a blue jay or a northern cardinal or something like that, that nests in that sort of open nest, they will snatch those.
We had a great horned owl got 8 of my ducklings and a baby peacock this year, and we couldn't figure out who was getting them. We thought it was a weasel or something, and we put low voltage all around the pen, and then finally got a trail cam. We got it out, and there he was, flew in, went right into the chicken house, walking around in there and just going,
Oh, the crow?
I want you,
Wow,
Yeah.
that's intense.
great horned owl, yeah.
The
Plus they decapitate.
Oh,
And
those-
they just eat
they're,
the
uh,
gullet
Well,
here,
thank
so
you for
it's,
sharing that.
yeah, it's awful when you
those
go.
there, what do you call it? Those really,
Oh my
they'll kill you
gosh.
with these.
yeah, the great horned owls are
Yeah.
they're nasty.
Yeah.
And at Hog Island, Maine, an Audubon camp in Maine, they have an Osprey platform there with an Osprey cam on it. In the last 2 or 3 years, Ospreys have laid eggs, hatched the chicks. Chicks are growing. Next thing you know, they're gone.
Yeah.
And great horned owl just swoops in, takes it, and it's like you can't even see it. It's so fast.
Oh,
So yeah,
Yeah.
but
It's like, who do you pick there?
yeah, that's, you know,
Like, team me on.
they got to eat too.
That's right, that's right.
oh my gosh.
Well, guys, thank you so much
That
for
was
coming here.
wonderful. Thank you.
Gave me, personally, a lot to think about.
Yeah.
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 So I'm gonna get now I'm gonna get my bluebird boxes full because I have those bloody. What do they call European? Not the starlings. What's the other one?
Grackles.
House sparrows?
House sparrows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can evict them. That's
I'm
fine.
gonna evict them too.
Um, and
The only other thing I would mention on the community programs, we originally started out having them at the Blackstone Memorial Library in Brantford. They went in there some reconstruction, so we've been doing the programs at the Canoebrook Senior Center. Now that we've kind of expanded our region to this side of the harbor, we're thinking of perhaps repeating some of these programs and doing them at the Barnard Nature Center.
Do you bring in animals to schools and stuff like that, or no? You do? Or just,
do we bring animals to schools?
like, can you bring anything? I'm just trying to figure out how I
Yeah,
can.
we don't.
We don't
generally
have
keep
anything,
Right,
but we have a lot of connections.
right.
We have a place called Hope, which is a rehab, bird rehab facility
Right.
in Cullingworth, which they bring birds into either into the schools or when we do stuff like Rock to Rock, which is kind of an environmental program where they're riding from East Rock and over West Rock over to East Rock Park and so forth. They've come down and done some presentations there as open to the community.
I just have a couple questions.
Yes.
The Connecticut Bird Atlas.
Yes.
I see that you're working on it right now. And we, as a commission, continually talk about what do we want to do for our open space management plan, and part of it is a natural resource inventory. And it sounds like this would be a good opportunity to partner to help fulfill our goal of having a good natural resource for the town in terms of having a bird inventory of what's in the town. It sounds like it's a good connection for us to make. Perhaps some of your members
Great idea.
or you personally might have an idea of how we could fill in that part of our documentation.
Steve Broker
Is he one of your members?
No, he's the New Haven
Yeah,
Bird Club and Connecticut
He's with the
Ornithological.
West Rock people. Speak
Yeah.
up. Yeah, he's with the West Rock.
And
Is
I
he?
think he lives in Woodbridge.
Really?
Okay.
Is it Broker?
Yeah. If it's not Woodbridge, it's Bethany, but I
Okay.
think it's Woodbridge. I mean, he spends so much time looking at Knowles Pond that I'm thinking it's got to be.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, and then on my little notes that I was making here, it seems like good areas for us. I mean, Knowles Pond and West Rock to me is sort of this fascinating area. It's such a unique geological formation over there.
Exactly.
The other thing about Knowles Pond that just came to mind is that one of the people who works for New Haven Parks was at Knowles Pond a couple weeks ago and saw a bald eagle there. And it was sort of hanging around.
Yeah.
So there's a possibility.
Yeah, we've seen him at Thomas Darling too, right? That's a little further out.
Yeah, that's right close
Yeah.
by, yeah.
It's got the right.
If it's not there, it might be someplace along the one of the reservoirs.
Do they have a bald eagle platform?
Yeah.
No,
200 feet high.
Well, we got West Rock. We can just stick something
Yeah.
straight out from West
The,
Rock.
but I was going through some photos this afternoon, and I found a picture of a pair of bald eagles on an Osprey platform. They were using it after the Osprey had left, and they were just using it as a dinner table.
Yeah.
But it was the strangest looking thing.
Oh my gosh.
In terms of the birdhouses and so forth, we had the arrangement with the shop teacher at Guilford High School, where they constructed the barn owl boxes and some other boxes. I stopped at Amity High School here just about a week and a half ago, and I have the contact information for Ed Rutowski, who was the shop teacher there. I plan to go up and talk to him and see if they might be willing to make some boxes. It was brought up by the Orange Conservation Commission that they would like to, either get some boxes to put out, or maybe use it as a fundraiser, selling the boxes to people, if they want to do the Orange Fair and that type of thing. when they're
Yeah.
exhibiting there.
I mean,
But, that's something I'll be, keeping close contact with you on.
I mean, personally, I set up boxes in houses. I've put up owl houses and bat houses and bird houses around my property. So I'm always interested in encouraging that sort of that nesting in the natural habitats. And Woodbridge has quite a bit of
Lot of
open
territory.
space
Yeah.
that could be leveraged.
Yep.
And encouraging some of these to be.
Absolutely.
It's one of the
There's a-
coolest things to be
And
walking on the
pay for the
trails.
I mean, do you
and-
need us to pay for the boxes and or put them out? Like, how would that? We'll figure that out. Is that what we're doing?
Oh,
Oh,
well,
no.
we can talk about it, but
Yeah.
I think it would,
Yeah, some on the
yeah,
trails.
I don't think, I wouldn't
'cause we
expect
definitely
free
could-
boxes. I would expect
really
that we would
don't have anything
encourage
out there.
what you're
One
doing.
of the things we've done is we've had nest box landlordships where people pay $30 a year to sponsor a box.
Mhm.
And whoever monitors the box takes photos of what's going on and just emails them to the person. So
Yeah.
it's like they,
Cool.
Yeah, that is, and that is one of the catches to the boxes, is that you
Yeah.
you need a willing and knowledgeable volunteer to
Yep.
monitor and manage them.
What about marshland? Like, I have like 2 acres of marsh behind my house. Could you put anything back there?
wood duck boxes?
Wood duck
Boxes, and I could, monitor them. Yeah, and they like that. I don't know. So
Is it wooded marsh or?
yes.
Okay. Wood duck boxes would work there probably. Is there open water there too?
Yes, there's
Okay.
stream.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So,
I'll put it in my yard.
yeah. I think we'll probably have some more discussions. I'll reach out to the Orange Conservation Commission as well.
We suggested using the Racebrook area for tree swallow boxes.
The Racebrook tract down there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just you drive in, walk across the bridge, and where the old Christmas tree plantation
Yeah.
used to be, which now
Because there are a couple houses on poles I know out there.
there
They're
are
kind of
already-
derelict.
There's tons
We
of
were,
places.
we were just there a couple of weeks ago and ran across a guy who was there. Oh, I'd like to do that. Sign me up.
Yeah, so it's like, we got to volunteer.
We got volunteers
Yeah.
walking into the survey
You
area.
never know what'll come about.
So I'm out here every day with my dogs.
So if you need to-
Happy to-
Excellent.
I'll just email you because I have a lot of
That's how it happens.
questions. Thank you.
And Carl, you were the original guy that got this going, huh?
Thank you.
Nice job.
Actually, the way it started was I'd organized the Baldwin Outdoor Education Center in 1972. I was a teacher at Baldwin Middle School, which had 46 acres of property, and from 16 of it was the playing fields, footprint of the school, and so forth.
Thank you, Dennis.
And the rest was all, variety of different habitats, 2 fields, evergreen forest, hardwood forest, stream, river, pond, and so forth.
Wow.
Which is, ideal place to teach, 7th grade science, life science at that time. So I put together a junior staff, which was made up of, 7th grade students to, survey the area, develop nature trails and so forth. And one of the people who was on my board of directors for the Outdoor Ed Center was a lady by the name of Ann Conover, who was one of the leading. She owned, most of the property that makes up the Guilford Salt Marsh area.
Wow.
And she donated it to National Audubon Society. Well, the person who was a high school teacher and a science department head for the whole town says, he was a member of National Audubon. He says, we got to put together a group who's going to be able to, monitor, protect, and preserve all of this land. So that's how it got started. So.
Right place, right time.
Yep. That's the way it's always the way it is.
And the right people.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
We do canoe ones in the summer.
Pleasure talking with you, and let's keep in close contact.
Definitely. Absolutely. I'd love to.
Keep checking the website because it's always.
Yeah, I looked at it today, and it's. I'm
He's doing some remodeling of the site.
We'll get one.
It takes regular maintenance. It does.
We'll get the canoes from Save the Sound or something like that. Or the parks. Okay.
Yeah, we're planning on
What kind of boxes do you have?
I'll tell you.
I've got my,
I built my own.
too. So.
We are not. That was agenda item 2 of 8.
Of 8?
8.
You may have to.
Oh my gosh! Yay!
only ran over by half an hour.
I know.
Okay.
It was very interesting, though.
Yeah, no, it
Thank
was
you.
absolutely worthwhile.
Great.
It was worth the time.
Thanks, Frank,
Thank
for
you.
setting
Let's
us up.
whip through these next.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. I think everybody
That was
enjoyed it.
wonderful.
Yeah, worth the
Thank
time.
you.
Good.
Thank you so much. Have a good
Take
night.
care. Yep.
All right, so we do have more items,
All
but
right.
some of them will go very quickly, like this
Okay.
next
Okay.
one.
Ready. Review and approve minutes.
Review and approve minutes of the
From
February 21st.
Yeah. Yes.
Seems a long time ago, but it really wasn't.
February.
I am going to make a motion to approve the minutes from February 21st.
I'll second it. Frank usually does it, Paul.
Okay.
I
Anybody
have to
can
stay.
say.
I wasn't here.
Made
Oh, I wasn't
by-
here.
I was here.
You can,
Made by
you can still vote on minutes.
Morrell. Seconded by me.
There you go.
Okay.
Is there any discussion about the February
Miller.
minutes?
No, I looked at it.
Motion approved. Oh,
All in favor?
yes. Motion approved.
All right. Next item. This one might take a little more talk.
Oh.
The draft rating scores that we're putting together.
Yes.
So I did go through, and of all the properties that are on the open space plan that are of interest, there are 18 that I went through and rated. And our rating system, as we've developed it, you can get a score from 0 to 480. the properties that I went through and rated landed between 100 and 225. So none of them even got to the 50% mark of being the top of the top.
Oh,
So
That says something about
I
the
don't.
data in.
Is that
right.
a rating system, or is that just the properties?
Well, that's how we developed the rating system and how we've tiered things: primary, secondary,
So what do you
tertiary
think's wrong?
importance. Well, maybe nothing. Maybe that is. I mean,
It shouldn't be open space?
well, finding one that would hit 480 would be very unusual. I mean, it would have to be actively used for farming, but also 100% forested, but also 100% open. So I think it's impossible to hit that maximum number. But there was a clear order that had developed, and I had broken out. I think the top, I had kind of grouped them in. There were 6 in the top grouping, and then 8 in the middle grouping, and 4 in the bottom grouping. In terms of time, tonight, I think I'll probably continue this discussion in the future, but I just wanted to have a brief introduction to it. And in addition just to the overall scoring, they're all backed up by the full scoring sheet and the ratings that we developed, and supplemental documentation, and I prefer to have it on the overhead, so not for tonight, but at the future meeting, where it includes the aerial maps, the topographical maps, the property boundary maps, so that it's not
So
just
what's your
it's not just a number.
Gut that tells you we need to do with the matrix, or how we use it.
You know, I'm not disappointed with how the matrix is working out. In some cases, it's predictable, especially around forest and wetlands, because Woodbridge is a lot of forest and wetlands. Some ratings that I feel they need some adjustment is the riparian forest buffer. That's basically streams with growth next to them. You're either a 0 or you're a 10 on that scale. There's really nothing in the middle. And it has to do with the distance. If you've got a stream on your property, chances are it's more than 100 feet long, which makes you a 10. Or you've got no stream and you're a 0. And then you've got properties that have got 1,200 feet of streams on them, but they're still a 10.
Right.
Even though your 1 acre property is also a 10. So I think that maybe that one may need some adjustment. Farming activities, I think, was a good one to have added, because that one does have a pretty good mix to it.
That was actually an interesting one on the Windsor thing, is that they had like 3 categories of farming.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that one in just a second. The one rating that I just was not comfortable putting a number on for any of the properties was the habitat of conservation concern. That one's not so easy to just look at a map and figure out. So I want to give more thought on that one. And that's one of our primary criteria. So I think we're going to have to spend a bit more time looking at it, considering it, and either changing what it is or trying to figure out an easy way to objectively rate it. And more clear definition as well.
I really think that, not to make us stay here longer, but I really think that is critical, because like when he said you can move the nest, I've had people with just as much knowledge say I'm not to remove the nest. So I feel like objectively, to really know the concern, I'm very easily swayed each way. Now I'm ready to remove the nest, but this morning I was not. So that's a tricky thing. I don't know how to be objective with that.
Right. Is that porch habitat of concern or not? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
honestly,
Yeah.
I'm really.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and that's sort of the microcosm of just
Yeah.
your front porch, but
Right,
we'll look
but
at
in
the
this-
bigger
Yes.
habitat of concern.
Okay.
Like a marsh or open field. So
I know.
getting back, that was a long answer to your question.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've got a good base, and it's now to the fine tuning. And Leland was good enough to make connections up with it was at Wesleyan. What was the land conservation?
The land conservation, it was the Connecticut Land Conservation Conference at Wesleyan.
Conference.
And by the way, the town pays for these things. This thing was incredible. I mean,
should go.
it was
Yeah.
8 hours, and I could have gone to it 4 days straight. There were so many good speakers there. It was incredible.
Yeah, I've been to several of them over the years, and every time I go, I'm
Well, and this one,
blown away.
because I think Wesleyan had so much to do with it, that there were really high-end academics there as well.
Oh, that's how it's always been.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's awesome. I agree. So you managed to make a connection with Windsor, someone in Windsor.
So, it was Honor Lawler, who's with the Deep, and Eric Bars, who's town planner in Windsor. And the two of them gave a talk on, it was called Let's Do a Deal. And it was basically how they got conservation land together and how they got the money. And they got over $1.5 million to put this piece together in grant monies, right? But I can go into more detail when we, maybe next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the short of it is
And plus, I'll talk to him
Yeah.
so I understand the bloody thing.
Oh, okay.
so they had developed a rating system.
Yeah, okay.
That's also very thorough, and I went through and I looked at it in the different weights of the different categories, and they've got criteria like we do, except theirs may be slightly different. They get into whether there's a vernal pool or a rare wetland, whatever that might be. But all of it is based upon a constraint factor.
Right.
All of their numbers are based upon this constraint factor.
Then that's what you didn't.
But we don't
weren't sure
understand
of.
what
Yeah.
a constraint factor is.
Okay. All right.
So we'll get a little more clarity
I'll
on
do the
Okay.
research there.
and we'll have more discussion about rating systems, both Windsor's and ours, at our next meeting.
So the other thing is, I bumped into the Yale forestry guys. They actually came out and looked at. They are giving a proposal for Thomas Darling, right? And so, but I asked them if they would come talk here, if we could have them at some point.
That would be
So maybe, would you want?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
So I'm gonna put you in contact with them.
absolutely.
Great.
Yep. Much like tonight,
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
good.
having
Meetings
speakers
like
that have experience and
What are we gonna do
knowledge.
with this information, though? Are we
We're
gonna
gonna-
incorporate it into what we're doing, or what, do I just disseminate this information to people that I know? Do I call them and say I want to be a volunteer? Like
So
all of the
good
above?
point. All of the above, right?
And
So-
also,
so-
we're going to
so-
include the bird inventory for our one of
Yeah.
our things, aren't we?
Right.
With their help.
I'm going to make this a segue into the next
Okay,
agenda.
great.
item. So the ratings, I think we're done talking about ratings.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next agenda item is the updates on the open space plan. And part of that open space plan is the natural resource inventory, which I believe is one of my pieces of homework.
Okay.
Yes, Jason will work on the natural resource inventory. This was decided at our February meeting.
Okay.
Lauren will review funding sources and look up deadlines.
Yes. with
That-
Nancy's
that-
help.
that's what you were wondering on
Yes,
earlier.
I found that. Thank you so
Um,
much.
So I think falling under the natural resource inventory is a real practical way to engage with the Audubon Society. And I'd like to reach out to the Orange Conservation Commission. I email them and they email me from time to time about other items. But if we can collaborate together, especially since Orange and Woodbridge are often together on a lot of other things, schools in particular, that I think we could probably have a big collaboration. And personally, I would love to see some nesting habitats
Yeah.
identified and maybe houses put up.
I mean, there's tons of places. I mean, around here,
Yeah.
you know.
And
I mean, even if you put it at the high school or something, it's like we could have the kids be part of that. You know, I mean, there's just so many possibilities.
do you want to also, Karen, come up with some ideas and reach out to some people in the community about
Yeah, I
their
mean, I
thoughts?
have a friend who asked me, her son's on the Boy Scouts. She's like, is there something, they're looking for something for a badge. Is there something that we can build? So here we go. You know, and I can call her maybe she can call this guy and they can tell him how to build a box, or, you know what I mean?
And then also finding out, I think probably finding out where to put boxes is the starting point. Building the boxes is great, but once you got a box, what do you do with it? Do you
Well,
put
like
it in a
the barn-
backyard,
Right.
or do
Like,
you?
there's a Darling house across the street, there's that barn. You can put a barn owl box, because there's a barn there. So maybe, I don't know if you need a box, because there's a barn, but you can put one there, and then maybe one will go in the barn and one will go in the box.
Right. So I think that's a good avenue to approach, is figuring out where and what boxes are most appropriate in different places. So
Right.
if you wanted to
And also,
take an
like,
angle on that.
I don't know, like at the schools, I mean, like, I can see,
Yeah.
like at Hopkins, maybe, there'll be somebody that'd be happy to have a box up there. I don't know, I mean, I have tons of.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunities in our town
Yes.
too, whether it's out in Eldersley or at Alice Newton Street or at Fitzgerald. I know Dennis was indicating that Fitzgerald might be a great place for some
yeah.
nesting boxes.
Baldwin Brook too, down there, would be great.
Yeah.
It's beautiful there, and there's, so.
So would you be willing to take the lead on
Yes.
sort of
Sure.
figuring, coming up with a plan of identifying where boxes could be put and what types
I
are
can,
most
and when I
appropriate?
walk, I'll take a picture of where I think, or even I
Cool.
can bring it back.
Yeah, and
Okay.
sort of compile something and bring it back to
Sure.
us.
We gotta get one of those, remember the one we went to before where they were doing the GPS tracking thing?
Yeah, yeah.
We gotta get somebody, we should do that, because, and you guys, everybody walks so much.
Well, the
Yeah.
next agenda
Lots,
item
lots.
edges into that, and I'm going to give some
Okay.
updates
Yeah.
on trails and
Well,
maintenance.
even if you
But-
did something around here, because you live closer here, you could monitor some of the boxes in this
See,
area.
Yeah,
she's
well,
ready to
I
go.
can
She's energized on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that, yeah, I could do that.
Even if it's
But
like,
sticking on the open space plan draft and going back to our February meeting, I just wanted to review what we're all going to be responsible for. So Leland was going to be focusing on funding. Julie, who's not here tonight, she was going to take up the zoning and ordinance pieces. I was going to take on the natural resource inventory. Lauren was going to check out funding sources and deadlines in 2019. And Frank and I were going to take a look at protection and acquisition of parcels. And we haven't quite touched base on that, but we will.
All right.
So, one of the things I did find is a common denominator with almost all the funding sources is the items they mentioned to have a strategic conservation plan, a natural resources inventory, scientific studies, and economic benefit study. Those were the key pieces that they were looking for conservation or towns to do if they were going to fund you.
or like, so if you were to apply for a grant, you have to have checked all those 4
Well,
boxes.
if you've checked all those, you've got a much greater
What
chance
was
of
the
getting
last
funding.
one? Economic?
The last one was economic benefit study, which was, I thought was the most interesting. And that was basically to say if you have open space, for instance, if it doesn't get developed and you don't have houses on it and you don't have the strain on the school system, right, which is
Right.
83% cents on every dollar. But to actually do the study, and I don't think it's that tough, but just to show how much cheaper it is for the town to have open space than to have residences. That was one
That's one
example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's continue on those assignments.
Okay.
And hopefully at our next meeting, we'll have a little more progress on that.
In time.
And
I can
time.
look up the advantages of open spaces on economic, whatever,
Okay.
of economically, whatever, I can't think of, you know what I mean?
You're right.
What's the
Economic
ec-
benefits.
the
Economic
benefit
benefits
for
of open
not-
space.
Open
Not
space.
developing,
Economic net benefit of open
not
space.
keeping
That's what-
things
yeah.
open space.
Yep.
Because, you don't have to, as many police officers, because there's not as many people, there could be a lot of,
Yeah.
whatever. Okay.
All right, so the next agenda item is discuss trails and maintenance. And this was a item that Betsy was going to help take a lead on the discussion on, but since she's not here tonight, I kind of feel I can fill in. Next Friday, I'm going to meet with representatives from the Alice Newton Street Park as well as the Woodbridge Land Trust, and to talk about the trails in the town and ongoing maintenance of those trails and usage of the trails. And because we no longer have a trail master, we want to make sure that the trails are, what's that?
I think you just.
Is Sam still
Ron?
around? Sam was doing a lot of work for us.
Sam, the runner, I
Go
think
off
he's
to school, or-
I think he's off to
He's a
college.
senior.
He's off to
now,
college,
yeah,
that's what I thought. Yeah, he's off to college now.
Well, didn't he start that club? We should know who the new president is.
Yeah, I think we should look into
Yeah.
that.
Can we
And see
find
if
a
he-
new
if
trail
we can
master?
get some more
Is there
help,
somebody
yeah.
that wants
We
to
need
do
to
it?
find a new trail master.
I mean,
Well, we'll be
I would-
talking about that next Friday in this
I
meeting.
think-
So
yeah, I
it'll
think we
be
need to really
myself,
look for something.
and the two land organizations in town, as well as Betsy, and I think at least one other person from the town, and we'll be sitting down and talking about, without a trail master, do we get another trail master? Do we find other ways to divvy up the work to make it manageable among all of these organizations, and who takes care of what? Because sometimes that's unclear of who's
So
making.
Well, I
along
know-
those lines, is there a chance sometime in the future where we could actually have a joint meeting between Land Trust and Conservation Commission?
Yeah, that's what we're working towards that.
Also,
Yeah.
Alice Newton.
Yeah,
Because that actually
Because
came
those
up
guys,
in a
those
number.
two
there
guys
was-
are out there every day, and they were fixing. I was after that. It was a big storm. All the bridges were washed away. They were there. I was just leaving, and they were coming in. They went in and fixed everything,
Yeah.
like the same day, like the
That
same
was,
afternoon.
that was probably Nate
Yes.
Case.
The
Nate-
guy with the sticks.
Probably, yeah, I think that was Nate Case. Alice Newton here?
Yeah, and then
Alice
the,
Newton,
and then
yeah,
the,
they have a committee.
the
Alice
prof-
Newton has
the
a committee.
professor guy and the guy. With, I'm bad with names. John and the other guy.
Yeah. So, so like I said, I'll be meeting with them, and that's what we're going to be talking about. In addition to signage on the trails, getting back to GPS and locating and where you are, and
Cool.
They have their own committee.
you've been out in the woods in Elderslie for a half hour, and you don't know how much longer you're going to be out there, and there's no signs telling you where you are or anything. So, I've got some ideas that might merge technology with signage in some
Great.
way, because I don't think anybody walks the woods now
Without a cell phone.
Without a cell phone.
Right.
So let's
There's
leverage that.
There's a map. There's also All Trails. Have you been on that
Yep.
app?
Yep.
Okay, because that will come up if you're on Elderslie. I mean, I haven't used it, but somebody on the trail was showing me they were still lost with their All Trails. But he saw them, and I was like, wow, that's great. It will show you right where you are and where the trail is. So it's pretty great.
Yep. And I've got an idea along those lines. It's "You Are Here" signage that
Right.
links to something that tells you it's another 30 minutes over to here, or 15 minutes if you take this shortcut, or 5 minutes if you just jump over the hill that way.
3.5 hours to Hartford.
Or 3.5 hours, yes. 2,500 miles to Las Vegas. So that's all I can give right now on trails and maintenance, but it's something that's going to be coming up with more detail in the next few months. Next to last item, update on the 2019 trail walks. I am slowly working to get something formulated for Massaro for early June, the 1st and 2nd. It's the same weekend as the Connecticut Trails Day. And something will definitely happen. The idea is the first part of the walk is in the woods, talking about Native Americans and hunting and gathering and food. And then the second half of the walk is on the farm, talking about agriculture and growing your own food instead of hunting and gathering.
Cool.
So trying to make it a bit more educational. And I know, Leland, you were lining up some geologists. And
So Jay Agu is actually no longer the state geologist because he was on sabbatical for a year in Australia. But I got in touch with him maybe a few weeks ago, or he got back in touch, and he said he would do a walk and a talk in either September or October.
perfect.
Yeah. So we can line up a weekend with him.
Excellent. Excellent. And did we have any other educational walks lined up yet? I don't think we.
Spelling his name.
Okay.
All right.
J-A-Y.
Keep your thinking caps on, because I think it would be great to have at least 2 more this year
Professor
with an
geology.
educational
I would love
slant.
to have
on it.
somebody walk and just talk about what each kind of tree is, and just somebody to talk about just-
Arborists.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For Yale
Not
Slow
a
Forestry.
dendrochronologist, an arborist.
it's kind of neat to know.
I think I have an arborist. Jim Urbano's daughter.
Oh, Andrea.
Yeah.
That's right. Frank,
Regional Water Company, you might be able to get Ron Walters to lead a walk around there and tell us something about
Yep.
what's happening with the Regional Water Company.
what's,
They got some nice properties.
what's new in the lakes these days?
Yeah, I almost like that. The hydrology one.
I was out biking past those lakes last weekend, and it smelled as though they had released a lot of water or something. You could smell the lakes.
Wow.
Maybe it was the time of the day, and we just had some overnight rain or something. But it smelled good. It smelled good. That's all I'm saying.
That time of year.
All right. Any other questions on trails or trail walks? All right. The last agenda item is the chairman's report, and I report that I have absolutely nothing to report on because it's 9:05. And I think it's time for us to head home. I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll second Frank's motion. Any discussion about adjourning? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Have a good night.
I do have